we announced our non-profit advisory council yesterday, and both Amanda and Monique here are part of that council. Their partnership personally is very close to my heart because over the years they've been very candid in sharing their feedback and insights with us on how we can improve our volunteering programs to make them more engaging and impactful. In today's discussion, we're gonna deep dive into their views on how they think we can further involve nonprofit partners in designing more meaningful volunteering programs, and also get their perspectives on what they hope to achieve on the Nonprofit Advisory Council. And to get us started, I would love to hear from both of you a little bit about your current role and what meaningful nonprofit involvement means to you in designing volunteering programs. Amanda, do you want to start us off?
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Bisgaard. I am the Director of Volunteer Strategy and Engagement at Boys and Girls Clubs of America. This is a newer position at Boys and Girls Club. It was started just a couple of years ago, and in my role, I work with all of our national corporate partners on best practices and strategies for how to effectively get their employees involved with our clubs. So I work with brand new partners and talk to them about best ways they can get involved and what to expect from volunteerism. I work with existing partners on how to connect effectively with clubs. And I do a lot of training with our club sites across the United States on how to engage corporate partners meaningfully and understand what type of opportunities are really important to them. And I'm really grateful to Goodera for the opportunity to serve on this nonprofit advisory council because I think as a nonprofit, sometimes with packing events or volunteer opportunities, we can feel a little bit like an afterthought. And so I think coming to the table at the beginning to define and share what is really meaningful and important to our young people and the kids that we serve is really helpful for Goodera to understand when there are opportunities to provide items, what is most effective. We also have been able to communicate pretty clearly around our clubs are very different. Every club that we serve has different needs and different opportunities to serve the young people there. So a lot of our clubs love bikes, but some of our clubs are like, we have a warehouse full of bikes, please do not give me any more. Or backpacks are super helpful and important, but we've run into some situations where schools only allow clear backpacks, and so clubs get an influx of backpacks and they can't use them. So I think that feedback is super helpful to share with Goodera. And then a couple other examples, we worked on a really amazing project together, Keystone, which is our national teen conference, where we bring together 1,000 teenagers from across the United States, and we do a conference, and they plan it. They tell us exactly what they want to do. Last year, they wanted to do community service, and so we worked with Goodera to plan community service projects for 1,000 teenagers, so kudos to you all for making that happen because it's incredible. But in the verbiage, as we were reviewing it, Boys and Girls Club is very intentional about using strength-based messaging. So we want to make sure that young people never feel defined by their circumstances. And so in reviewing the verbiage, there were certain phrases that were a little harmful, like underserved communities. And so we shared that verbiage with Goodera, and they were able to change all of the wording in those materials and use that going forward. So I think being a part of this council is a really helpful way to kind of give guidance and perspective from the nonprofit perspective.
Hi, everybody. My name is Monique. I am with Covenant House, California. I'm the corporate relationship manager. This is a newer role, so it's only been in its existence almost a year. I was formerly the human trafficking case manager. I've been with the organization for about 6.5 years now. We have sites located all across California. So we have a site here in Santa Clara, we have a site in Oakland, we're opening up one in Hayward, and then we have a site in Los Angeles and Orange County. I work really closely with our corporate partners and engaging them in the work that we do. and trying to design specific volunteer activations with them that are impactful for the corporation, but also for the young people. Because at the end of the day, for me, it's always going to be about the young people. Our job as an agency is to protect them, and so we want to be very mindful in the activities that we are engaging in. And we do our best to bridge the gap with corporations, because there's a lot of times folks will come in and they have a very specific idea of like what they would like to do. If it doesn't match up with our agency, we give that feedback. It's an educational moment. We have a conversation about it, and we talk about how can we shift it. A good example is coming up in May. We had a group reach out to us, a corporate partner that really wanted to do a beautification project. Well, initially they actually wanted to do a cleanup project at our Oakland site. Currently our Oakland site is under construction, and so it can be cleaned up, but also like it's just gonna be messy the whole entire time because we're under construction. So I was telling them it wasn't really the ideal fit right now, and they're all mental health professionals. They didn't necessarily want to do like any hands-on work with our young people, which that's totally fine. And so I was telling them, as mental health professionals coming into May for Mental Health Awareness Month, like let's do something that can beautify the space, that can make the young people feel like they have a beautiful space to go to when they need to check out, especially with all the construction going on, because there's a mess going on literally in their home that they're living in. So we have this beautiful rooftop that's very plain, there's nothing up there. And so I asked them, like, are you all willing to come in and to beautify it? Bring the plants, bring all the things that you think as mental health professionals would be helpful for our young people. And they were totally on board. So again, that's just like an example of like a need that we had, but then a corporation that was wanting to come in and, you know, volunteer with us in a way that didn't make sense at that time. And so we're really big on being able to design any kind of engagement as long as it makes sense and it's benefiting the young people that we're serving.
Yes, I think listening to nonprofits and actually taking the feedback that they share on board is very important to meaningful volunteering and actually making the difference that we all aim to make with our volunteering programs. And so we really appreciate the feedback you've all shared with us over the years as well. I think since we're talking about volunteering contributions and how those have helped the young people and teens that you work with, can you share some examples about beyond volunteering support, what kind of contributions have come from corporate partners that have truly made a significant difference to the teens and young people at Boys and Girls Club of America and Covenant House? And if there are any stories you've heard from the teens that you would like to share. Monique.
Sure, I'll go. Yeah, so there have been a lot of different impactful moments, but one that stands out is there was a group that came in to volunteer at our site with the young people. They were a real estate company, and they were doing a beautification project. And there's a lot of them. There's probably like a group of 50. And the youth were so interested in what was happening. Now, this activity wasn't necessarily meant to be an activity that the young people were going to engage in, but because they were so curious about what was happening, they wanted to help, because they felt so loved that these people were coming in to beautify the space that they live in. And they felt as though that they were really being cared for. The fact that, you know, these strangers that actually don't know them want to come in and transform a space. So then they feel loved and that they feel like they are worth having a beautiful space. And so in that, it was really cute, because the young people were helping them paint. Again, it was not meant to be an activity for the young people to engage in, but we're not going to tell them no. If they want to and they're excited about it, of course. And so the company that came in, they were really excited also to see that, because they were not expecting that. And so the young people were painting with them, helping them hang up pictures, and having just real conversations with them about what do they do, how do they get started in their industry. If they had an interest in going into real estate, what does that look like? And so it was just like a really special moment, because it happened so organically, which is like always the best thing anyways. And the young people were so excited. And then a lot of them did ask if they would come back to teach like a real estate class, which they did. And there was a couple of young people that enrolled in the class just to be able to learn more information and to see if that's like a avenue they really wanted to go in. And the organization had brought donuts and snacks for the young people, and the young people were so thankful, and so they were telling them thank you all day for just I mean, it's just like such a simple gesture, but they really felt loved and cared for, and so that was just a really special moment because none of us foresaw that happening, especially when you have a lot of people come on site. It's like, you never know how it's gonna go. It could be really overwhelming, even though we always prep our young people and tell them, hey, we have this group coming in, this is what they're gonna be doing, and we always make sure to have a designated space for them where there would be no volunteers at if they were feeling overwhelmed and needed to get away, and so you never really know, but that was a moment where it was like, oh, this is really, really special. It was special for us, the young people, and then the partner that came in.
I can speak to a project that Harshita and I are working on currently. So one of our national partners is a youth serving organization. They're a clothing brand, and they sponsor one of our Summer Brain Game modules, which is a 5-session series that supports literacy for young people. It is based off the book Wilbur Gets Dressed, if anyone knows about it. It's a naked mole rat. And this is a 5-session series that really talks about this book and builds confidence for youth. And so we are working together on building classroom boxes with this partner's volunteers. And within that box, we're going to include all of the materials for a club to easily implement those materials in that curriculum. So it's an accordion file with all of the materials for lesson 1 in the first folder, all the materials and worksheets for lesson 2, all of the materials to implement the hands-on activities and community builders and icebreakers, a copy of the book, some stickers of Wilbur, the naked mole rat. So if you opened this box, you would be like, what is this? What's in here? But if you have ever been an educator or a teacher, you know how time-consuming it is to print off materials, get everything ready for curriculum planning and hosting a session with young people. And so this is just a really great example of holistically supporting our clubs where they need it by taking something off of their plate, by supporting them with the materials that we want them to use, by supporting literacy with young people. And so I think that's just a great example of how we're working together to define what type of things do we really need. And then the other example I'll share is that a lot of our clubs really appreciate art supplies, STEM supplies. As you all know, several of the clubs in the LA area have been impacted lately, and so when Harshita reached out about what type of items they needed, those clubs, of course, funding is most important, but they could also utilize art supplies because they said, we need items that can take these young people's minds off of the situation that they're in. And so I think just really thinking about what are those needs of the clubs and sharing those with the team has been helpful to really get them what they need and deserve.
I remember reaching out during the LA wildfires and you mentioning that the clubs are overwhelmed and so it'll take some time to get back. And then knowing how the art supplies could potentially be used was really helpful, and I think a bunch of our partners are working later this month or early next month to put those together for the clubs there. So thank you for everyone who's volunteering to support our partner nonprofits during the LA wildfires. I think my next question is around, what kind of challenges do you experience when working with corporate partners in designing, planning, and executing volunteering projects? What are some of the issues that you run into, and how do you usually tackle these? Are there some best practices that work for you, as well as some of the best practices that you would like to share with the corporate partners here?
Sure, I can go first. I think one of the things that we experience sometimes is just flexibility in working with clubs. I've already mentioned that all of our clubs are very incredibly different, so what works for one location may not work for another location. And so when we work with national partners who want to do something in 20 markets or 30 markets, it's hard to say we're going to do a career panel at all of those 20 markets on April 6th, you know? So we've really started to share that initially when we are starting to talk with a partner that we really want to keep it open-ended so that we can define and find opportunities that are meaningful for that area, which may not be the same across the board. We've also been very clear that we are only open during certain times, and our club professionals are experts in youth development, so the best volunteer opportunities that we can provide at Boys and Girls Clubs of America are the ones where you are directly interacting with youth and experiencing a day at the life of the club. And so morning opportunities aren't available, weekend opportunities likely aren't available. And so we've really just done a much better job of defining that initially, like these are the times of day that we have the best opportunities for you to have the most meaningful experience. We've also built a structure to really support the way that we go about volunteerism. So when we have a national partner that reaches out and wants to engage employees in 20 markets, we have a process where we will create a letter of agreement with the club that has details outlining what they will be participating in. We always provide funding to the club to ensure that they have the support that they need. And we outline details like host a project with X partner in the month of April in the category of workforce readiness, so keeping it pretty open-ended. We then host a kickoff call with the champion from your organization and our club to say, here are the details, here's what you're going to be doing, and here are all the resources you need to make it happen. So if it's in the workforce readiness category, we have facilitation guides on 5 or 6 examples: networking bingo, speed networking, a career ladder activity, and it has all the details necessary to make it happen. These are the supplies needed. Here's how you set up your room. Here are the PowerPoint slides. Here's what the facilitator will say. They're all built in our high-yield learning format, so they have a community builder, an icebreaker, step-by-step what the facilitator will say, and reflection questions, so that the club and the champion can choose what their volunteers are most interested in and what makes the most sense for the club. They know their club best, and they can select that. So that's how we go about making sure that we remain flexible, knowing that every club is different, and still allowing clubs and champions to choose something that makes sense for them.
My response is similar, but it's not as well put together. So for us, we have a lot of flexibility. We don't really have a lot of systems built yet. Again, this is very new. We have built a few little systems, but it's really just being flexible and then, again, educating our partner as to the reasons why maybe what they're wanting to do doesn't work. So an example I can give, a lot of people, especially because during the COVID days, would like to do virtual volunteering. To be completely honest with you, it's very difficult for our young people. Why? Multiple reasons. Not all of our sites have equipment to be able to do that. So we can't do a virtual volunteer event if we don't have the equipment. Majority of our sites actually don't have the equipment. So that's a huge barrier. And so that's a conversation that we have. And so we talk about how can we pivot. For our young people, it's always better when folks come on site versus doing things virtually. And so we just have very real conversations about how can we be flexible, how can they be flexible, and sometimes it may just not match up, and that's also okay. I am not in the business of wanting to waste anyone's time. We're about making impact, and so we're not going to say yes to something that doesn't make sense. And so if there is like a very specific ask that a partner really wants to do and like we can't accommodate it, then I'll just say like, unfortunately, this doesn't match up, and if we're not able to pivot into something, you know, maybe we can plan a different activity for later in the year. And that's not always like the most fun conversation to have, but that is the reality of it. Again, I don't want to tell somebody yes and it not be beneficial for your corporation and then also for the young people, because then what are we doing just to like check off of a list that we're saying we completed something? And so sometimes that is a hard conversation to have, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. And so we're just very transparent about it, really. But majority of the times, it's not an issue. We are able to find a common ground. There was another group that recently reached out. They wanted to do financial literacy. and a financial literacy group or workshop with our young people. They had a specific date they needed to do it by. The date was not a problem, it was the actual workshop itself. We had just recently had one. It didn't make sense for us to have another one, but they were open about it. I told them, we just did this, and so to be totally honest, we can put it on, but you're probably not gonna have that many young people show up, so it would probably be a waste for you all. And so we talked about, can we cater something more towards someone who's wanting to start a business, because a lot of our young people are entrepreneurs, they're starting businesses, and so could you come in and talk to them about what that looks like and like financials about that and how to plan. And so they're like, yeah, we can totally do that. I said, perfect. We already have a group of young people that are in like a business class. Then we know for sure you're gonna have a group that's gonna be engaged and wanna show up. And so having that flexibility with the partners is ideal, honestly, but yeah, we make it work. We find somewhere to meet in the middle most of the time.
I just want to add one thing. I also want to add that we struggle sometimes. One of the challenges that we face is sustainability. So we have partners who very generously will let us know, like, we want to build a garden box or paint a wall or, some type of beautification project. And we have so many situations where the garden box is built, but then not maintained. And so as you guys are thinking about these projects that you're planning with nonprofits, if you are doing some type of project like that, do you have someone at your office who is an expert gardener that would be willing to go to the club monthly or weekly to check on that garden box? Think about the sustainability of these projects and how it's going to be received going forward. So I wanted to add that as well.
Absolutely. I think it's important to think about long-term volunteering programs and how you can sustain engagement with a partner over a period of time and not just showing up once, doing a project, and then not following through with that. I think my next question, Amanda and Monique, is around, we've been partners for about a couple of years with Covenant House now. What would future collaboration and corporate support look like to you in the coming years?
I can go first. Okay. For us, it would be having a relationship, a partnership, but it's establishing into a long-term relationship where we are partnering on different levels. So I like to think of it a little bit like dating, right? Like, a kit packing thing is cool, event is cool, that's a way to, first, I think like the first date, you wanna go to like a coffee shop, okay. You get a feel for it, you do an activity, but let's move beyond that. I would love to see more of our partners that are coming in for like the first time to move just beyond the kit packing. We have a lot of different ways that people can be involved. And so, again, where the greatest impact is made is when you're directly with the young people. And so being able to come in and like host an event with the young people or lead a workshop or whatever it may be, something that could be hands-on with our young people. And then beyond that, there are other ways to be involved as well. And so we would love to have the volunteerism aspect, but then also there is the employee giving. And then if your corporation has any grants available, having the opportunity to apply for the grants. And so ideally to be involved in all those different levels, that's how we would like to see our partnerships move forward. We do have some partnerships that already function that way. Our biggest partnership is actually with Cisco, so shout out to Cisco. And we would like to see more partnerships happen throughout all of our sites. Our Los Angeles site is the largest site, and so we do tend to have a lot of partnerships there. It's been established, but some of our other sites have not been in existence for as long, and so we are wanting to get more people on site and engaging and connecting and knowing about what's going on, and so being able to grow those relationships in those different locations as well is how we would like to move forward. So really going from something that can feel a little bit transactional into like an actual relationship, long lasting, is what would be ideal.
I think for us, the primary way that Boys and Girls Clubs of America works with Goodera is through off-site packing opportunities. At BGCA, we have a really strong infrastructure for in-person volunteerism, so we typically handle that through our organization. But a lot of our clubs are recipients of the donations that you all put together, and we're very grateful for that. So I think continuing to define what is really needed by a lot of our clubs and sharing that with Goodera. We've also started exploring what does youth opportunities look like, and I know you all mentioned that yesterday and in the safari. So like I mentioned, we have done a teen experience before. A lot of our young people are very interested in community service projects, so how do we bring those to them? And I'm also a big believer that a lot of times corporate partners are interested in one-time opportunities, and I really see that as an introduction to Boys and Girls Club and the work that we do. This is a time where you get to see the magic happening in a club and the wonderful things that are happening and how brilliant and talented our young people are. And so I think through all of these opportunities, my goal is always, how do we get across how wonderful this organization is and these young people in your community are, so that you can know how to get involved in the future, whether that be as a volunteer, as a donor, as an advocate who can call your representatives and advocate for these young people. So I think that is my goal in partnership and in opportunities, is sharing those opportunities so that people can continue to get involved in the work that we're doing every day.
Love the analogy about one-time projects being dating and how we can move into long-term relationships with nonprofit partners. I think that requires a level of commitment that a lot of volunteers here definitely have. So that's definitely exciting. I think one other thing that is common between both Covenant House California and Boys and Girls Club of America is the focus on workforce readiness and youth employability. And since yesterday, we've been hearing a lot about AI and how that will impact the future of volunteering. So one of my questions now is, do you currently use any AI tools as part of your workforce readiness programs and youth employability initiatives? What do those look like? And do you see any scope in the future of expanding the use of these tools to further empower the youth? Any thoughts?
We don't have any formalized tools that we are sharing with our clubs, but I will talk about AI is the future, and we have worked with several of our partners to talk with young people about how to effectively use it. So I know on the panel yesterday, Adobe was talking about their AI curriculum and programming. Want to talk to you more about that. But we have started to do programming with young people for their workforce readiness on how to effectively use it. So I think we're just kind of exploring how we can use this with young people going forward, but that's one way that we are utilizing skills-based volunteers to teach young people about how they can use AI in their work.
We also don't have any kind of curriculum or anything set up to work with the young people in AI. It's just something that our career coach has just been slowly doing with some of our young people. Also, a lot of our young people have such an interest in AI. And so right now what it's looked like is really around resume building, job applications, things of that nature is how they've been utilizing AI. But they, being the young people, have voice that they would like to be able to learn more. We also are very open to having, a program come on site to be able to teach our young people about AI. How can they utilize it? Also, for us, it's so important that whenever we have a partner come in, that, of course, because you are like the professional in your department, to come in and explain how you got into that. Because a lot of the young people want to know. They're so curious, and I think also they don't know the opportunities that they have available because no one's ever told them or talked to them about it. And so, we don't really have anything set up, but that's something that we definitely have an interest in and would like to do moving forward.
Absolutely. I think teaching AI to teens and youth is a great way to enable them to be a part of the AI revolution and really be in step with the rest of the world. And that's where a lot of volunteering can come in, where companies can spend some time working with the youth to share their perspectives and guiding youth in using AI tools, especially when it comes to mentoring or resume reviews and things like that. This is going to be my last question, and then hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A from the audience. So Amanda, Monique, if you had one superpower as part of the Nonprofit Advisory Council, what would you like for that to be, and how would you use that?
That's a great question. I would say endless ideas. I'm an idea person already, but sometimes you can have a creative block, and so I think having endless ideas on how we can problem solve some of the issues that we run into in working with corporate partners, or just having to figure out how to solve the ways that we could best work together to provide again for our corporate partners, and then also for the nonprofit, and so we can be unique and think outside of the box in how we collaborate and work together. Yeah, so I guess endless ideas.
I would say that I see myself as an advocate and a representative of the young people that we serve across the United States. So I think that the superpower that I want to bring is just always representing and centering that everything that we are doing is for them. And so keeping that front and center and top of mind is really important, and I think that's what I want to bring.
Love both of them. I think brainstorming ideas and collaborating together is a great way to think about what else can we do and keep pushing the envelope when it comes to volunteering. But always having in the back of mind who we're doing this for, and keeping that as like the centering force for any idea that we're developing is also the reason why we're put together the Nonprofit Advisory Council, to make sure anything that we create in the future has perspectives coming in from the nonprofit partners that we work with. Your insights are being factored into, and we're hearing from the teens that you work with through you. And so that's all from me, but do we have any questions from the audience?
Thank you, Amanda and Monique, especially for centering that we need to listen to you before planning stuff. I think that's really central. And with that in mind, I keep thinking of what do you think we should take into consideration as we plan ahead our next fiscal years? And within the current situation, I think probably you have been foreseeing and already feeling this shift in your needs due to the current administration in the country. And so how do you think this would affect, how do you already kind of anticipate this affecting your sustainability as nonprofits, and how we can also plan ahead and be more of your support in this moment, and so we can actually create an impact and support you within this instead of just like some like feel-good stuff. So yeah, I'm just wondering, because I'm very worried about how to sustain nonprofits as of now, and I want to make sure that I am being more supportive of you in what you're going to need moving forward that might be different than what we've been doing before. And by the way, Mariana with Experian. Thank you.
Yeah, I can go. I'll go first. Great question, number one. And this is a conversation that we've been having at our organization. So really, I think part of it falls on us as an organization. We are creating a plan as far as like what our needs are and the way that we could be supported. And so we are planning out a year in advance. And so then we're able to share that with people up front, with our partners, with individuals, and so they can take those things into consideration as they're also planning, especially with the corporate partners, when they're looking at their calendar for the year and trying to figure out what makes the most sense and where they can contribute. And so for us, it's kind of on us to create the plan and then share that out so then we can communicate, this is what we need, this is how you can support in all these different ways. So then you have all the information up front to make the decision on how you all could be involved.
Thank you for the question. I think it's on everybody's mind, especially in nonprofits. It's something that we are thinking about daily. Honestly, funding is the best way that you can support clubs. Several of our organizations rely on federal funding, which of course is we're all a little worried about right now, especially for after-school food. That's something that all of our clubs provide. So those are some things that are key needs that all of our clubs are going to have a need for. I also think mental health for young people right now is rough. It's rough out there for all of us and for young people. Several young people are dealing with mental health crises and the state of the world. And so we have been very intentional about doing social emotional learning with young people, providing mental health supplies, making sure that they're taken care of. And so when you're thinking about funding, and thinking about supporting clubs through volunteerism, mental health is an area that is always going to be needed in the next several years.
Next question is going to be right here, and checking the time, we got about 10 minutes. So if anybody else has any questions, I'll be on the lookout for raised hands.
Hi, my name is Georgia from Benevity. This might be a little bit redundant from Mariana's question, but what would you, given you have lots of challenges, what would you say is the most critical short-term challenge that you need to fix or find a solution for? And for both of you, candidly, I'm really curious.
Great question. So many answers. No, I'm just kidding. For us, it would be funding, is honestly for short-term things that we need now. Yeah, funding for our programs, funding for activities for the young people, funding for staff. To be totally honest, I mean, staffing is an issue that comes up quite a bit, and a lot of times when you are applying for grants and things of that nature, they don't want to fund staff. They want to be able to fund the programs, but in order to have the programs, you have to have the staff. The staff also need to be taken care of. I'm super passionate about it. I can go on and on forever about it just because I have been the frontline staff, so I understand what it is like and the things that they go through. And when you're short-staffed, you know, you have a staff member that is covering for multiple people, and so they are actually going to get burnt out faster. And so funding to be able to provide more staffing to take care of the young people that we serve.
I have way too many answers. I don't know. I don't know which one to go with. I think what I would say is that Boys and Girls Club is part of just a greater ecosystem of problems that young people are dealing with. You know, I think that when you think about a young person, especially in the state of the world right now, several of the young people that we work with are hungry on weekends, they don't have food, don't have medical coverage, don't have appropriate education because their classrooms are overly filled. And so we are trying to be a safe place and a place that they can go where they can receive those things. So I don't think there's one thing. I think funding can support us in providing those things, but there's just a slew of things that are affecting young people right now.
Any other questions? We still got some time. We'll come over here and then we'll go a little further.
Hi, Grisela with CSAA. I understand you've shared and expressed in many ways how you appreciate on-site volunteers coming in and doing what you really need, right? And not trying to create a mentorship program where you don't have the supplies, the computers, laptops, or whatever it is that you need to be able to do that. But I'm wondering if you have partnered with Goodera in virtual opportunities, not necessarily where it's a direct service to your clients, but more in terms of resources or other ways that volunteers could provide support to programs virtually. Some of the offerings that Goodera has are, for example, flashcards, creating flashcards, words of encouragement, or whatnot. I'm curious to know whether you have partnered with Goodera in a similar experience, and if so, what has it been, and what has been a good opportunity or activity that you have done. It does not have to be the flashcards. I'm just using that as an example, but quite interested to see, or curious to see your perspective.
Yeah, yes, we have partnered with Goodera on a variety of things. So one of the things that we have partnered with is the solar lamps. Goodera has worked with corporations, and they've built the solar lamps, and they've given them to us so we can give them to our young people, and that has been extremely beneficial. We do a lot of street outreach, and so we have young people that are staying in our shelters, but we also are connected to young people that are unhoused actively on the streets. We go out to them, we meet them where they're at, we bring them supplies, and one of the things that has been the most beneficial is bringing the solar lamps. So we bring them out to them, so then they have light, because when it gets dark, if they're living on the streets, yeah, you have some street lamps, but it doesn't provide a lot of light, right? And so light provides safety for them. So that's been really, really important. We also have received mental health kits that have been put together for the young people, which has been great because it is actively giving them a tangible thing that they can have and they can utilize. And so a lot of our young people have utilized those, and we were talking about this the other day actually, they will use like the stickers and they put them up in their rooms and as like reminders of like things that help to ground them and just like positive words of affirmations. And so we also have received those. And then the career readiness kits, which have been really beneficial for our sites that do not have a career coach, because not every site has one. And so we actually have done activities around that where we have had our associate board has come in. They would give all of the career readiness kits to the young people, and the associate board actually brought in donations of professional clothing, and so we made it into a whole workshop utilizing what Goodera had given to us for the young people to start their career readiness journey, and then making it into a whole event where they were able to then get clothing as well. So it was like a partner on so many different levels from so many different people, which was really cool to see. So yes, we do.
We have heard very loud and clear from our teens that no more virtual, please. So any youth serving virtual activities, a lot of our clubs are not interested in right now. We have not worked with Goodera on any virtual opportunities, but some things that we've done at Boys and Girls Club is host a webinar to talk about volunteerism and find a club in your area, put together a project in a box to mail to some of our clubs. We have a survey platform that donates every time someone does a survey for us, and so we have done a webinar where we talk about Boys and Girls Club and have volunteers just fill out surveys the whole time to raise $10,000 for the organization. And so those are some things we've done, but some of the projects working directly with youth through virtual are not something that are needed right now for our clubs.
And last question for this session.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing. I'm Sam from JPMC. My question's more on like the ideal future state that you see or have in mind when it comes to corporate volunteering partnerships with nonprofit, and thoughts on how we can get there. Thank you.
Sure. I do a lot of work talking with clubs and training them about, what are ways that corporate partners can be super effective for you. And I really highlight three main things with them. The first is capacity building. So when clubs have daily needs, every day they need tutors, they need coaches, they need people to put snacks out. Every December, they know there's a holiday party. Every November, they know there's a Thanksgiving party. In May, they know there's a senior celebration. So really working with them to define what are your needs that you need groups of volunteers. The second area that I can see groups of corporate volunteers being supportive is bringing unique skills, perspectives, and experiences to our young people. All of you in this room room have employees at your organization that are in a field that is so new and unique to our young people. And so that is something that we love to expose our kids to, whether that be a behind the scenes tour. We've worked with food industries to do like a cooking class. We've worked with tech industries to do AI programming. We've worked with financial institutions to do financial literacy program. And along with that, we've done like celebrity engagements. We've done so many cool things, behind the scenes tours of the Lion King. And so having those unique exposures for our young people. And the last is that corporate volunteers can be an introduction to the work that we do. And I spoke about that earlier. This is a way to see our work and learn about how you can get involved long term. So I really see that as the future for corporate engagement, to your question.
Yeah, for corporate engagement and for the future, I think what would be ideal for us is to have it be engagements that happen multiple times and not just be like a one-off. And so I think that something that would be great is being able to have a corporation come on site again. Do something with the young people, but then also maybe it's like a few months later, 6 months later, something, being able to bring our young people now to where your space is. And so I think it's cool for them to have you all on site to help and to see the things, but then also taking them off site, because that is not something that happens a lot for us. And I think it is great to have the young people get off site and experience what other spaces look like, what other professions look like, the kind of work that you're doing, even if it is just for like a quick tour or something like that. But yeah, I think just being able to be involved multiple times throughout the year, and it doesn't have to be anything too extensive. It's going to be within your capacity, whatever that looks like, and that's something that we can work on together and we can personalize, but that would be the ideal situation.
Thank you, Amanda and Monique. And I think just on that last note about long-term volunteering, I don't know if the two of you or if everyone else in the room saw the missions that we had put up in the safari, but that's exactly the idea that we also are looking at when it comes to the future of volunteering, is how to work with nonprofit partners to create long-term volunteering programs where you can start with projects which are kind of like an introduction to the nonprofit partner, and then build on that relationship to work directly with the young people and teens that nonprofit partners work with, to build that deeper relationship which truly impacts the communities that our nonprofit partners work with. So that's all from this panel. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Monique. Thank you so much for your time, everyone, and hope this was an insightful conversation.